Now that we are headed deeper on into the fall season, it's that time of year when a lot of Iowans like to look forward to the next season, the winter season, and try to gauge what do we think is going to happen this coming year. Well, obviously, months in advance, it's really hard to scientifically pin down any sort of detail about what a coming season is going to look like. One thing that we do know now for sure that we are going to have factoring into our winter weather this coming season is another episode of La Nina. La Nina is one half of the El Nino Southern Oscillation, which is the climate pattern that happens down in the Pacific Ocean along the equator west of South America. So refresher, La Nina happens when the trade winds, the easterly winds here along the equator, blow stronger than usual. They blow the warm water along the surface out to the west, and then there's cold water from deep down within the ocean that wells up in its place to replace it. And that cooler than average water then has impacts around the globe. For example, you can actually look at currently what our sea surface temperatures look like. Where you see those swirls of blue, that's waters right now down in that part of the Pacific that are cooler than average, right about 0.5 degrees Celsius cooler than average. That's what we would consider a weak La Nina. They would have to be a lot colder than normal to be considered a moderate or a strong La Nina. Now, that cooler than average water then causes cooler than average air above it, which changes the pressure in the air and the atmosphere and then changes weather patterns around the globe. Now, typically up here in North America, it alters the flow of the jet stream across the continent. So you oftentimes will have cooler air that's cooler than normal air that spills down out of Canada into the north central U.S., weather systems that get carried on along the jet stream and cause wetter than average weather across the Ohio River Valley and the Great Lakes and out in the Pacific Northwest. And then oftentimes you'll have wetter or warmer and drier than average weather across the southern tier of the country. Now, this is the typical impact of a La Nina. The thing to remember, though, is that when La Nina is weak, like it is this season, that means these impacts are muted and the overall influence of La Nina is lower. We actually had a weak La Nina similar to what's coming this year last year. And this is what we got out of last year. Here in Iowa, most spots were below average on snowfall during December, January, and February, and just drier overall when you factored in melted snow and rainfall. We were, 16 inches of snow here in the Des Moines area. That's below average on moisture overall. Our temperatures were around average. I think technically in Des Moines, about 0.3 of a degree below the norm, generally around normal across most of the region. Now, what are we looking to this season? Well, just looking at La Nina, and with a weak La Nina, there's not much we can really read into. You can see the latest outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. This is for temperatures through the winter months. Yeah, not really much to see here in the midsection of the country, but you can see the fingerprints of La Nina in the outlook for temperatures across the southern U.S., looking probably warmer than average, and then a few pockets of some wetter than normal weather projected across parts of the northern Rockies, northern plains, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio River Valley, and then drier than average weather, the southern tier of the country, the desert Southwest, and so much. It's a little harder with La Nina to really gauge, especially with a weak La Nina, what's going to happen here in Iowa. With El Nino, it would be more obvious. We're usually going to be warmer than average when you have El Nino. Well, that's not what we're going to have this time around. Well, why can't we tell you more detail? Well, obviously because it's months away. But also El Nino and La Nina are just one weather pattern. They're the biggest of what we call teleconnections, which are climate patterns that happen around the globe and then they affect other parts of the world that aren't even close by. These are just a few other ones, right? Out in the Pacific, up in the Arctic, over in the Atlantic Ocean. And these oscillate, they change on a much faster, more frequent basis than El Nino and La Nina, and that makes them a much harder to predict. A lot of these change on a weekly or even, daily basis, which means we can't really forecast them months in advance in the way that we can La Nina and El Nino. But that's what we can share with you for now, this far away from winter. We'll have to see once we get closer.